views and opinions expressed do not necessarily reflect those of Access Fort Wayne, the Allen County Public Library, or any other supporting groups. If you'd like to produce a show, call us at 260-421-1250.
Let me be your lighthouse so I can show you the way. Let me be your shining light, I'll keep you from drifting away. I'm the one that makes you try when...
Hello, this is Patty Hunter of Patty's Page. Today we are interviewing on Zoom Alexandra Snyder. Hello, Alexandra. How are you?
Hi, Patty. I'm doing well. Thank you. How are you?
I'm fine. You work with Life Legal Defense Foundation.
Yes.
What is that?
So we are a pro-life nonprofit law firm, and we handle cases implicating the protection of human life. So these are cases involving pro-life speech, employment discrimination, conscience rights, things like that, things that are typically more associated with abortion or pro-life efforts to restrict abortion. And then we also handle quite a number of cases involving the denial of life-sustaining care. And those are, I used to call those end-of-life cases until I realized that in many cases, this would not be the actual end of somebody's life, except that somebody was withdrawing or withholding care that they needed to survive.
Deliberately doing it.
Intentionally, yes.
You are the executive director, one of the board
Yes.
members?
Mm-hmm. Executive director / CEO. So yeah.
Oh, well done.
Okay.
Well, how long have you been with the Life Legal Defense Foundation?
I've been with the organization about 5.5 years now, and I love it. I feel like I was called or made prepared for this type of work. So it's really been a blessing to work with the organization and to get to do the kind of work that I do on a daily basis.
So when was that formed?
We actually were established in 1989. So we've been around for over 30 years now, which is quite a long time. We've grown quite a bit since our very humble beginnings, but our organization was founded initially to help sidewalk counselors and people who were doing pro-life advocacy outside of abortion clinics. And so in 1989 was 16 years after Roe v. Wade, and right around the time that pregnancy centers were really getting established, and where there was really a movement of pro-life activity. And so there was a lot of harassment, threats, and retaliation against people who were in one way or another protesting what was going on inside abortion clinics, whether by talking with women, praying, holding signs, or whatever the case may be. So our founder is actually a retired colonel. He is a lifelong sidewalk counselor. He still goes, now he's in his 80s, he still goes out to the abortion clinic on a regular basis. And he thought there must be a way to protect people who are just really engaging in what should be constitutionally protected speech. There's got to be a way to protect them. And so he got a few attorneys together. And then we have since that beginning mushroomed into an organization that now has over 5,000 attorneys on our database. So pretty much anywhere in the country that where we get a phone call seeking help, we're able to get an attorney and match them with that individual.
Is it a Christian base?
We are not explicitly Christian based. So, I mean, we believe in the sanctity of human life. Our our board members are largely Christian, Catholic, of various denominations. But we certainly, in terms of who we help, we will help anybody who calls us.
So where is this located, the headquarters?
Yeah, so we have an administrative office in Napa, so that's our formal headquarters.
No.
But I'm sorry?
Where is it? Napa what?
Napa, California.
California, okay.
That's a beautiful part of the country, that wine country. And then but I work from my home in Sacramento. All of our staff attorneys work from their homes in various parts of the state. We've got several people who work with us who are out of state. And then, like I said, our attorneys are located anywhere in the country. So we take cases literally from coast to coast. And we've even been involved in several international cases. Like you may remember the Alfie Evans case. We were asked to consult on that, the Charlie Gard cases, things like that. So.
And did you try helping Terry Shriver?
Yes, we did. So that was, I think that was about 15 years ago now. And we did have lawyers in the very beginning of her case assisting the family. And we still work very closely with Terry's brother, Bobby Schindler. Mm-hmm. So we mutually refer cases to one another. We consult on cases together. And he's just a wonderful advocate for the protection of a vulnerable life, particularly individuals who are brain injured or otherwise disabled.
So lately in the news is Joshua Barras.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
What's happening with him?
So that is a really tragic case involving a 37-year-old man who was arrested a few years ago on a drug charge. And during the booking process, he went into the bathroom and tried to hang himself, and so suffered a lack of oxygen that led to a profound brain injury. So he is not brain dead. He is what you would call minimally conscious or minimally responsive. So he does respond. He tries to speak. He smiles, he laughs. I've seen videos where he tries to sing along to a song. Mm-hmm. So he has times where he's definitely aware of his what's going on around him. But he does have a profound brain injury. And so he is not able to feed himself. So he requires a feeding tube for nutrition and hydration. And his wife has decided that she wants to now take him out of the nursing home where he's currently receiving care, take him to her home and without food and water. So basically to dehydrate and starve him to death.
Good. That's the word.
Yeah, she wants to kill him. Yeah. And this case is so egregious because this is a couple that was in the middle of divorce proceedings when this injury happened. And I don't know if the suicide attempt had anything to do with that. I really have no idea, but it's just, so this is not a couple that was still really together in any sense of the word. The wife has since gone on. She's in another relationship or other relationships. I don't know. But she has definitely moved on, and yet she still wants to kill him. And we are representing this man's mother, who wants very much to have more time with her son. She visits with him regularly, typically through a Zoom call. She sees that he's responding to her and just doesn't want him to be killed. I mean, it's so arbitrary.
So what can you do to help Joshua and his mom?
So we've gotten a local attorney involved, and we're working with that attorney who has filed basically a restraining order, or a motion to compel treatment. So right now, the judge has said that he has to continue to receive food and water until the next hearing, which is going to be next week.
Next week.
Mm-hmm. And then at that time, I don't know if the judge, these cases all proceed so differently. So it's really hard to say exactly what the judge is going to do next week. If the judge is going to, I know he's going to allow expert testimony, but I don't know what more is going to be done at that time. So obviously we are working towards and really praying that this judge will make this order permanent, that he will allow the mother to make this man's healthcare decisions as opposed to the spouse. And I have to say, this case is very, very much like the Terry Schiavo case and other cases that we've handled. And I don't know what it is, but in most of these cases, it's the spouse who wants to kill the patient and the family, either the parents or siblings or both, who want to keep that patient alive. And I don't know what that says about the state of marriage in this country, but.
Yeah, I don't think the spouse has the right to take a life.
No, I don't think it should be illegal unless somebody, I mean, this is a relatively young man who does not have an advance directive in place. So he has not communicated to anybody what he wants. And so to take away food and water from a patient who has not authorized something like that in advance, I think is criminal. And in any other context, this would be a crime against humanity. We don't allow this in times of war. We don't allow prisoners of war to be killed through starvation and dehydration. It's horrific what is happening in this country, and with some regularity.
Well, over in Europe, they have euthanasia, something like that.
Yeah.
And that's what she's trying to do, euthanasia here?
Well, I wouldn't even say it's euthanasia, because euthanasia requires consent. Now, I'm opposed to euthanasia because I don't think people have the right. So it's kind of like slavery, if you will. There's certain things that people do not have a right to do, even with their own bodies. So you don't have a legal right, for example, to sell yourself into slavery. And you don't have the legal right to tell somebody to kill you. You don't have a legal right to have somebody put a contract out on your head and execute you. So there are some things that the law, just in order to protect people, does not allow. That door has been, the floodgates have been open, certainly in Europe, for these kinds of things. But there is a distinction between euthanasia and what's happening in this case, because euthanasia is by consent. Unless it's a minor, which is really horrendous. But in this case, he has not given any kind of consent to having his food and water removed, and he cannot give consent. And so the presumption should be that he wants to live, not that he wants to die. And that's what's so dangerous about these cases, because they set a precedent for our legal system to start entertaining this notion that people don't want to live, they actually want to die. And that is very, very dangerous for society, and certainly very, very dangerous for this young man.
And she doesn't put much of importance about his life at all. It's like abortion. They don't put any, if they're not seen or whatever, or if they're mentally ill, whatever, might as well put them down because they don't have any value.
And that's what it is that we are now in a society that measures people's worth by what they can so-called contribute. This is we should be aware, this is a very Marxist and materialistic notion. This is certainly not a Christian notion that our worth is determined by our kind of arbitrary ability to give something back or to contribute. That is not at all the biblical notion or the Christian notion of the sanctity of human life, which is that we were created in the image of God. And that in itself is what makes life valuable and worth protecting. So this has been an enormous shift that's been over time. This is not something that's just been in the last couple of years. This shift has been going on, and as you said, really in the last 40 years or so, really having to do with Roe versus Wade, separating people into classes between wanted and unwanted, and giving them different levels of protection depending on which group you fall into. And again, this is very dangerous. History shows us what happens when we do this. We've seen genocides, we've seen the Third Reich, we've seen all this in history. Yes, a very just this is not where we want to be, and particularly in this country where we do, at least allegedly, in our founding documents, talk about that we are all created equal. We are created in the image of God, and for us to go that route, that very materialistic and utilitarian route, is it's
Yeah,
really
we're
hard.
trying to go the way we were fighting in the war.
Yes,
Not against that Nazism and communism and all that. Now
Yeah.
we're starting to turn their way instead of what we're supposed to really be.
yeah. Yeah, no, that's a very good point, that we have fought wars over this very thing. I mean, the last World War was fought in large part over this very issue of the sanctity of human life, that you don't divide people into categories. And, I mean, that is genocide. And we see that with abortion, certainly in this country. I mean, 65 million babies killed for no other reason than they weren't wanted. And then now we're really starting to see it with disabled people, brain injured people, mentally ill people, people who cannot stand up for themselves.
If they don't give, why let them live?
Yeah,
You know, it is.
yeah,
It's
yeah.
sad, isn't it?
It is really heartbreaking, because it's terrible for obviously the individuals, but it's so devastating as a culture to see this happening, and to see so many people buying into this. I mean, this is the whole premise behind assisted suicide, where people are thinking, well, if I'm going to be a burden, then I don't want to live. And it's really an indictment on all of us that we have not communicated the message that every single life is inherently valuable and worth protecting.
For a Christian, Satan is the one behind it.
Yeah,
Period.
yeah, it is a really evil.
Trying to kill off God's children.
Mhm.
So the saint, what do you call it? Satan take over as quote a god unquote. That's what it looks like in a lot of civilizations around the world who are not Christian.
Yeah, yeah, and again, I mean, we've fought wars against regimes that have done this, and now we are ourselves the instigators.
Do you find that the younger generation, are they changing for the better or for worse?
It's hard to say, because I know that there are a lot of young people who are self-described pro-life, that are very adamant about the protection of the unborn, for example. But I think there's been so little education in every sector about the principles that underlie that. So why is life worth protecting? Why are vulnerable people worth protecting? Things like that.
Yeah, we are worth protecting because we have our souls. Our souls are alive.
Yeah,
We have every right to be alive. No one, even the unborn, newborn, teenagers up to the adults to the elderly people, we all have the right to life.
yes. And this was understood even by our founders, and well before that, I mean, this is why that's written into our founding documents. The right to life is not something that a group of pro-lifers made up. That is incorporated into the very founding of our nation.
Yes.
That as the most fundamental right is the right to life. And we are rapidly eroding that. And it is going to have
Government's not helping.
no.
Yeah. I'm praying for the government that they change their hearts and their minds, saying human life is more important than animals. See what we see in commercials now? Animals save the animal life and all that, but
Yeah.
they are so gung ho for abortion. Everything's kind of
Yeah.
topsy-turvy.
So inconsistent. And I mean, I think we should be there are a lot of good reasons to protect animals, to put animals above human beings in terms of value is well, it's confused.
I think that's, well, why make animals more important than humans? I don't know. They're going backwards, the people in this world.
Well, and I think the aim is not to make animals more important. The aim is to make humans less important, less valuable. You can do a lot of things with people. You can manipulate people if you put them down, if you know what I mean, down on a lower level. You can control them, you can kill them, you can do all kinds of horrible things to them. And again, it's not like this is anything new. This is what has happened throughout history.
Yeah.
And that we are so naive, or that many people are so naive to think that that the kind of atrocities that we've seen elsewhere could not happen here is mind-boggling, really.
I was surprised and yet not surprised.
Yeah.
Human nature, if you start thinking on the evil side, the dark side, they can do any unimaginable horrors to each other. We saw that in Hitler, saw
Yes.
that in communism, China.
Yeah.
There's another.
Yeah, it is really shocking, because when you look at some of the statements that have come out, especially this last year with a lot of the political protests and even the race protests and things like that, when you look at some of those founding documents, they are very much like things that you saw in Cambodia, for example, under Pol Pot, where it's a dissolution of the family and taking children, and the belief that it's okay to take children from their parents and things like that. I mean, those are all the kinds of things that are that I'm very concerned that could still be coming for this country, because we have not adhered to our foundation, our biblical foundation, and then even again our legal foundation, our constitutional framework. All of that supports the family, supports the protection of human life, and we are sliding away from that.
Spiraling downwards.
Yes.
Instead of being let's talk now. Let's talk about third-party guardians. What does that mean?
So that's so a third-party guardian is typically a court-appointed guardian who will be named to handle healthcare decisions and sometimes financial decisions on behalf of a patient who is incapacitated for some reason. So we're dealing with a case like this right now with a woman who has some dementia and she can still communicate, but she's not able to make all of her own decisions. So her daughter had been taking care of her, had been taking very good care of her, was named her guardian, and somebody filed a complaint against her. And I don't even know the nature of the complaint. And honestly, she doesn't know the nature of the complaint. All she knows is that somebody filed a complaint. It might've been a hospital, something. And then the court, the Adult Protective Services launched an investigation that triggered a court-appointed guardian. And that guardian now is making all of this woman's healthcare decisions, and just decided to put her under hospice care, even though she is not terminally ill. And which drastically reduces the kind of treatment that she's going to be getting. So she's not even going to be getting basic vitamins and things like that that she had been getting to kind of manage, just manage her health in general and manage some of her dementia symptoms. And this is a person who has never visited this patient, knows nothing about the patient's family, is being paid out of the patient's estate. Has now really the power of life and death over this individual that they don't even know. And this is a really, honestly, a very, I won't say it's inherently corrupt, but it is rife with corruption and the potential for corruption, because you have judges appoint these guardians. And then the only way to get the guardian removed is to go back to the judge and say, you made a mistake. Well, I mean, I don't know if you know much about the legal system, but judges don't acknowledge that they make mistakes. I mean, there is a very a heavy onus on the part of the family member who's trying to protect their loved one to show that there's been true negligence or things like that. But just a decision, or even a decision to take somebody off of food and water, would not, for most judges, would not result in that guardian being removed from his or her position. So we had another case a while back that was really, really tragic, where a disabled woman who had been disabled from birth, her older sister was her caretaker, and her older sister had made a deathbed promise to their mother that she would take care of her sister for the rest of her life. And she was doing a great job. And then the sister had to go to the hospital. I don't remember exactly what happened to her. She had to go to the hospital. She might have had pneumonia or something like that. And the hospital then wanted to release this disabled woman. And the sister said, I don't think she's ready to be released. She has some other conditions. Please look at this. Please take a look. And the hospital just did not want to provide care. And I'm going to just pause here for a second, that this is not unusual. Even the American Bar Association, which is not a particularly conservative organization, they've published studies that show that healthcare providers are much more likely to discriminate against a patient who is disabled, which can result in withdrawal of care, a shorter lifespan, all these things. I mean, it just showed this pervasive bias against disabled patients. And that was what was manifesting in this case. So the hospital said, we want to release her. We're done with her. We're not going to provide any more care for her. And probably because of her insurance, she was probably a Medicaid patient, so they weren't getting reimbursed what they felt was enough. So they were just done with her.
You're playing God. You know?
Yeah. Yeah. And saying basically, this is a person who's not worthy of care. And this was not a person, again, she was not brain dead. She was not even, I mean, she was aware. She was just disabled. I mean, she just couldn't, didn't have the same IQ probably as the doctor in the hospital or things like that. I mean, it just was astounding to me. And so, but the sister kept asking. And so finally the hospital went to court and asked the judge to appoint a guardian. Said the sister cannot manage this woman's care. She disagrees with us. We are the experts. She's disagreeing with us. So we want somebody else to come in and manage her care. So they appointed a guardian, which in that state or that jurisdiction, most of the guardians came out of the same law firm. It was a firm of guardians. And I have to say, yeah, I'm sure there are some good ones out there, but obviously when we get calls, things have gone wrong. And some of these people are really the bottom feeders of the legal world. They are, because they don't have not a lot of work to do. They don't have to prepare a ton of briefs. They get information from a doctor or whatever, and they go and they present their recommendations to the court, and that's it. And then ultimately, they wanted to take this woman off of food and water for no other reason than she was disabled. I mean, it was just horrible. And they did. Ultimately, we fought them for quite a long time. We went back and forth. The sister fought them. And ultimately, though, they were successful in killing this disabled woman. And there's no other, I mean, you said it, there's no other way to put it except for they killed her.
In Europe, they even killing kids, children.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. Which
Anything. There's no more value on human life.
No.
We got to start correcting that and, reverse that.
Yeah.
That's why we're on this show, dear.
Yeah.
So we need to educate. How do you educate? Like with this show and others? How else do you tour or?
Yeah, I mean, I do speak this last year. Obviously, I haven't done a lot of public speaking, but we've done some webinars. We have some videos out there. We've done different ways of communicating some of these very serious issues, because what I find is that when we get a call from a family member saying either a spouse wants to take away food and water, or a guardian wants to take away food and water, or something like that, we find that the people that we deal with have no idea that this is even in the realm of possibility in this country, that you could actually legally starve someone or dehydrate someone to death. It is horrific. So talking about this is very, very important. And then, I mean, and everything else, yeah.
And
Yeah.
they do that with the babies if they're Down syndrome or without a limb or something like that.
Yeah. Yeah, and so many of those cases, those babies are aborted. They never even get a chance to take a breath because I think it's up to 75% of children with a Down syndrome diagnosis are aborted before they're even born. So
Because if you're not perfect,
yeah,
you're not born.
yeah, and parents say, well, I don't want my child to suffer. Well, if you say that, you know nothing about Down syndrome, because I mean, some Down syndrome children may have health problems and things like that, but it's not like they're constantly suffering or something like that.
That's the way they are.
Yeah,
In that way, they know no other life, and they're alive and they're vital.
Yeah.
What gets me is that I don't want my child to suffer, yet they make the child suffer by killing him.
yeah. I don't understand that really either, but that, again, that's the prevailing mentality, is that if somebody is not perfect, not able to contribute, not, I mean, all of those things, that they have no value and they are expendable.
And I noticed that some of the shows as I was growing up, Logan's Run. Have you ever heard that one?
Mm-mm.
Well, people are born, they have to be perfect. They don't have mothers and fathers. They're born in a test tube.
Oh,
If
okay.
you're not perfect, you're disposed of. And if
Yeah.
you're perfect, you only live up to the age of 30, because you're going to get older. You start getting non-perfect.
Getting expensive. Yeah.
See what I mean? That was about 40 some odd years ago, that show.
Mm-hmm.
Now, look what we're doing.
Yep. Yeah. Yeah, it is bad, but we, like I said, we intervene in these kinds of cases, and I don't want it to sound like all is hopeless, because we've intervened in cases that have had really good outcomes. So for example, we had a case a few years back involving a 32-year-old woman who had had a heart attack, completely unexpected, obviously at that age, and was temporarily incapacitated. But within 48 hours, the hospital had called her mother in. She had a terrible relationship with her mother. She did not have any communication with her mother for 10 years, but because her mother was her next of kin, the hospital called the mother, and the mother said, oh, my daughter would not want to live that way. And even though she was not brain dead, she was not even in a coma. Her eyes were open. She was kind of tracking, but she was not able to move, and she was not able to feed herself. So they put her in a hospice facility, and they took her off of food, but not off of water, which I always thought was so curious, because I thought, well, if you're really trying to kill her, just take her off of food and water. It goes a lot faster if dehydration comes first.
Dying that way too.
Yeah, it's horrible. But and then later I found out that this is done really, I mean, this is kind of, I don't want to say the protocol, but this is done with astonishing frequency with patients like this. They're not declared brain dead, so you can't just go in and cut them open and take their organs out. And this young woman was an organ donor, so you can't just harvest her organs if she's not dead. We do have still a dead donor rule in this country. But what they will do is they will starve a person, and that will then precipitate another heart attack or some kind of cardiac event.
Right.
And when that happens, they won't resuscitate. So she'll have a do not resuscitate order in place. They won't resuscitate. And then they'll do a 2-minute watch. So they usually have to wait 2 to 5 minutes where the person is clinically dead. And then they will go back and reanimate the heart. So they could have resuscitated her, but they wait until after they declare her dead. Then they reanimate her, and then they can cut her. I mean, it's gruesome.
It sounds like a horror movie.
It does. It does.
It
I mean,
is horror
fortunately,
movie,
in
yeah.
that case, we were able to get involved. We got her taken out of, I mean, over the strong objections of the hospice and her mother, we got her taken out of the hospice facility to a brain rehab center, and she made almost a complete recovery. When I saw her, she could walk, talk, sit up. She was doing occupational therapy to learn how to take care of herself again. But I mean, she was starting to read again, all kinds of things. And we've had numerous cases like this where people were on this path of being killed, and then we were able to get them out. But again, people are shocked to learn that this happens in this country.
Well, it is happening, people.
Yeah.
What can you share with my audience to enlighten them? We have talked for 40 minutes some odd, and I think this is very, very important for my audience and other people. This will be put on YouTube as well, with your permission.
Yes, absolutely. So, and I think having these kinds of conversations is so important, and I'm so grateful for you, Patty, that you do this on a regular basis. I mean, this is what you do.
I think it's the truth. I don't lie.
Yeah.
Try not to.
Yeah. Yeah. So I think that's really important, that people educate themselves, that they learn about what these things are called. You've talked about this. We talk about this with a lot on our website, for example, on our Facebook page. So people can go there to LLDF.org and see what is going on in this country with regard to denial of life-sustaining care.
Is there a phone number for LLFP?
Yes. So our number, if you're in a situation where you need help, our number is 707-224-6675. Or again, you can go on our website at LLDF.org, and we have a contact form. You can contact us that way as well.
Can they make appointments to see you personally?
What we do is we do a phone consultation first, and so our administrative office does an intake. Then either I or one of my colleagues will speak to them, find out where they are, and then we will match them with a local attorney if they need legal help. Sometimes we're able to do things without going to court. We don't like to go to court, really, because I'm not that crazy about putting these kinds of decisions in the hand of a judge either, because you never know what you're going to get. But sometimes that is necessary. But there are times when we're able to mediate a solution without having to go to court. Yeah.
Finally, what would you like to just say to my audience to encourage?
Thank you for being interested. And again, I mean, I think as people share this information with one another, that's huge. So if you're watching this, if this is of concern to you, talk to other people about it, ask them about it. I mean, I find that a lot of times when I tell people what's really going on, they'll say, oh, wow, that's exactly what happened to my mother-in-law, father-in-law, grandparent, or whatever, but they just didn't realize what was actually going on. So talk to other people about it. If you're in a church, talk to your pastor about it. I find so many times pastors don't want to talk about these things because people are uncomfortable with death and uncomfortable with these situations. But we need to, as a church, we have to talk about these things. Because if anybody is going to be upholding the sanctity of human life in this country, it is going to be Christians. I mean, this is part of what we believe. And so if we're not going to stand up for the vulnerable, we certainly can't expect anybody else to.
Yeah, that's right. We have to stand up for our own and for others.
Yes, absolutely.
We are our brother's keepers.
Yes. Yeah.
Thank you, Alexandra Snyder of Life Legal Defense Foundation. Thank you so much for being on my show. Do come again. We do love to have you as our guest here on Patty's Page. This is Patty Hunter of Patty's Page. Thank you very much, Alexandra Snyder.
Thank you, Patty. Thank you so much. And thank you for what you do. God bless you.
God bless you. We'll see you next week.
All right.
Godspeed, my love, until we meet again. You're always in my heart and every dream. Don't let this time apart give in to all our fears. God will keep us close from up above. So until we meet again, Godspeed, my love. God is with us always for the rest of all our lives.